Closing the deal. Disney has officially agreed to buy Comcast's remaining 33% stake in Hulu for at least $8.61 billion. The two sides now enter negotiations for the streaming platform's valuation. Yahoo Finance's Alexandra Canal has those details. Oh, Ali, this is an interesting one here.
Yes, and we finally have the answer on what's going to happen with Hulu. And as expected, Disney will soon control 100% of that service. Now, under the terms of the agreement, Disney is going to pay Comcast, NBC Universal a minimum $8.61 billion by December 1st. Now, this represents the floor of what Comcast is owed for Hulu. The two sides will enter into those negotiations. And if it's determined that the value of Hulu is greater than what the floor suggests, Disney will pay the percentage of that difference. Now, Hulu, it's a very great streaming service. If you take a look at some of the titles that have come out of that, like Only Murders in the Building, The Handmaid's Tale, it boasts around 48 million subscribers. Disney CEO Bob Iger has said general entertainment content, like the content that Hulu provides, is really core to the company's content strategy moving forward. And that's despite initially telling investors earlier this year that all options were on the table for Hulu. Clearly, he's changed his stance on that. And now we have at least one outstanding issue close to being solved for this company and just ahead of earnings next week.
And so, Ali, another outstanding issue for Disney is ESPN and finding strategic partners to help with its streaming ambitions. What's the latest commentary from Wall Street? Because we know sports is always that big barrier here that a lot of these streamers are trying to contend with.
Now, so we have a new note from Bank of America that said ESPN could be valued at $24 billion and seek a variety of potential buyers there. We do know that Disney has engaged in strategic partnership talks with professional sports leagues like the NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL. But Bank of America said that there are other possible partners out there, like big tech with Amazon and Apple, or even telecom giants like Verizon and Comcast, which would help on the distribution side. Now, Bank of America did assume that Disney would want to maintain a 51% majority stake. Hearst already has a 20% stake in ESPN. So that leaves a 36% interest in this sports network when it comes to who a potential buyer could be. The capital, of course, would greatly help Disney at a time when its streaming efforts have been struggling. They could potentially pare down some of those losses. However, who the buyer of ESPN would ultimately be is a little hazy, considering we're in this transitional period for media. We've seen traditional TV declining. We've seen cable really not doing so hot, with cord cutting escalating. We recently saw ESPN financials for the first time, and that showed a decline over time in profit. So TBD on who would ultimately want this. We will see even more of those financials next week and ultimately hear from CEO Bob Iger. So we'll just have to wait and see when it comes to that, because you're right, Rochelle. Sports is the next big thing in media. Disney needs the money. ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, but there's also overhanging issues as well.
It's true. And then there's also a lot of overlap, because you have some of these companies like an Amazon already has its own streaming service, yes, and the risk of sort of competing while also trying to complement each other. But then you wonder, for advertisers, do they prefer some of these big tech companies in terms of ad space and everyone viewing things on their phone, or some of these more traditional entities and sports teams? If you had to place a bet on who perhaps would make the most sense as a front runner here, who would you pick?
It really depends what Disney is looking for. Obviously, the tech giants like Amazon and Apple, they have the cash. They have a lot of money that they could throw at Disney. But in terms of distribution, if Disney wants to go that route, maybe they do want a more traditional type of buyer, like a Comcast or a Verizon. There are different ways that Disney could go here, and whoever does maintain that controlling stake. But again, it's really up to what people are willing to pay, what people are willing to put the value of ESPN on, because Disney obviously is going to go with the highest bidder. Advertising, of course, that's been under a lot of pressure given the macro environment. We recently heard results from Roku pointing to a bit of an ad market recovery, but still traditional TV ads in that realm have been significantly under pressure, and we just don't know when that's going to correct itself moving forward. So I think in 2024, hopefully we'll have a little more answers here, especially as Disney really wants to take ESPN over the top for that streaming platform, hopefully by 2025.